When I start to run a virtual machine, if you'll kind of step back with me here and think about it, we have to tell that virtual machine what kind of hardware that it's running on, or in other words, what kind of hardware does it think it's running on, because it is virtual. But we have to have a hardware compatibility. If you're a Microsoft type person, anytime you get ready to install Microsoft Server or like SQL Server or Exchange, one of the things you want to watch is hardware compatibility. You want to make sure that your machine can function on the hardware properly on the machine, where you're installing it. So each of our virtual machines has a hardware version, and this determines which one of the virtual hardware features the virtual machine can support. Now really what this ties back to is what version of workstation are we using, what version of workstation was used to build this virtual machine, and that sort of thing. And we're talking about things like the BIOS of the virtual machine. How many CPUs can this particular virtual machine support and access? What's the maximum amount of RAM we can set on this particular virtual machine? Just all those kind of settings start to show up. Well, every time a new version of workstation comes out, all the pointy heads at VMware figure out even more cool things that can be done with these virtual machines, and they expand how much memory they can use. They expand, how many processor cores they can use, how many logical processors, all that sort of thing. And so with each later version of workstation, we have higher hardware compatibility levels that allow our VMs to do more things. Now older virtual machines can be configured sometimes to take advantage of the enhancements, say in something like Workstation 8. However, sometimes the older virtual machines, and even sometimes the new ones, can be configured to work with older VMware products. I don't want to shock and disillusion you, and I know it's probably not this way where you work, but everywhere I've ever worked, there's always a budget crunch going on. And we don't always have the latest and greatest in technology. A lot of times we have, baling wire and duct tape and stuff, keeping a bunch of old smoking, chugging servers, coal-powered servers running, in the back room. So sometimes you'll have to set your virtual machines one way or another to get them to work. Now, one thing you want to do is make sure, when we're thinking about hardware compatibility and trying to change these things, make sure that you have your VMware tools up to date, because just like VMware enhances functionalities with each new release of Workstation and so forth, they're constantly doing this. Sometimes on a week, just a few weeks apart, they will update VMware tools. So you want to make sure that stays up to date. And there's there's a video about installing VMware tools somewhere in the course here. You can go look that up and get some more information. VMware tools, by the way, is something that's worth going out there and reading and investigating on your own out on the internet. So let's jump out into Workstation here and let's look at changing this hardware compatibility. Okay, so just like magic here, I have jumped into VMware Workstation, and what I want to show you is I've powered off my XP Professional machine, and if I go up to the VM menu, notice how often we use the same virtual machine menu right here. Notice if I come right down here, this is where I can install or update my VMware tools, but if I go to Manage, right here on the top you will see Change Hardware Compatibility, and this is going to bring the Change Hardware Compatibility wizard up for you, and you can read all this in your spare time. And I'll click Next, and notice right now the hardware compatibility for my XP Professional virtual machine is set to Workstation 8, and that is telling me it's compatible with ESX, with Fusion 4, with Workstation 8, and here's some of the limitations it is enforcing. I can only have 64 gigabytes of memory, I can only have 8 processors, I can only have 10 network adapters, and we can only have a 2 terabyte disk size. And I'm saying only tongue-in-cheek here, all right, being just a little bit smart. But notice if we go back, say, to Workstation 6, there's a lot more products that it's compatible with, but we've also have some stricter limitations. We can now only go to 8 gigabytes on our memory, 2 processor limit, 950 gig disk size, no HD audio, no CPU hot plug, on and on and on. Then as we go farther and farther back down to Workstation 4, we've got quite a list here, but we've got a longer list of things we can support. So we'll leave this at Workstation 8. All you'd have to do is choose one of those, hit Next. It will adjust the hardware compatibility. Keep this kind of in that virtual machine administrator's toolkit out there, because if you ever have a virtual machine that's not performing like you think it should, you may want to go read up on the hardware compatibility. The forums out on VMware are great for this. Go see if anybody else is having the same type problem. And quite often with performance issues and just bizarre little things, changing the hardware compatibility can work wonders. So anyway, just wanted you to know it's out there. But that's just a little aspect of administering these machines that can really help you. And so that is the ability to change your hardware compatibility settings inside each individual virtual machine.